Hello everybody, my name is Felipe Mamone. I'm a master's student from the University of São Paulo in Brazil.
Hello, I'm Letícia Brazil. I'm a student of Bachelor and Licentiate in Visual Arts at the University of São Paulo, and I'm part of the Realities Research Group.
I'll begin by saying that our presentation is quite straightforward. It's titled A Brief Survey on the Characteristics of Recent Virtual Exhibitions, and it aims to provide some guidelines as to the mode of construction of these spaces and its effect on the relation they establish or do not establish with a concrete space. That relation, needless to say, has quite huge repercussions in their conception and design. But as I've just said, we will only mention these consequences due to time restrictions, okay? First of all, it must be said that although the last couple of years have witnessed a growth in digital activities by museums due mostly to the COVID restrictions, the idea of a virtual museum already has extensive literature in the field of museology, with some cases that, depending on the author's interpretation, go as far as the 80s. Thus, the cases we examine in this presentation need to be taken mostly as an intensification of a long and complex process that already existed previously to the pandemic. That is, the incorporation of ICT practices not only into museums communications in general, but also, and I might add especially, in its curatorship and expographic decision-making instances. So it's precisely due to the complexity of this discussion that we have decided to center our research on virtual exhibitions alone and characterize it according to only two criteria: the technologies used in its construction and the relations they establish or do not establish with a concrete specific space.
In this research, we analyze virtual exhibitions that, in addition to taking place in digital form, are characterized by immersion and the simulation of three-dimensional space.
The two main techniques being used in virtual exhibitions construction are 360 photography and 3D graphics. A 360 photography is usually produced through wide-angular lenses that take two simultaneous pictures in opposite directions. These photographs are then sewn together to produce a single spherical panoramic. In the case of virtual tours, this procedure is reiterated in key points of the tangible space to produce several panoramics that, by its turn, will be connected by graphical sequences or interpolations. In the 2D graphics techniques, however, the digital environments and its objects are simulated through programming languages and renderization instances. Nowadays, libraries like 3GS or JavaScript languages are the most common to find by their compatibility with several web browsers and also for their user-friendly interfaces.
Among these virtual exhibitions that seek to simulate a three-dimensional space, the technical and conceptual choices result in different interactions between aspects of tangible and digital spaces, depending on how they are used. Some trends can be observed in the characterization of these exhibitions, such as the digital reproduction of an exhibition located in a physical space, the expansion of a concrete exhibition as to the space and the materials made available, and exhibition designed for the digital medium without a specific physical referential and that only exist online. It is important to emphasize that these divisions are not exclusive, since exhibitions tend to present elements from more than one of the proposed categories. Among the virtual exhibitions that replicate an exhibition present in a physical space, there is a trend towards the use of 360 photography, resulting in the so-called virtual tours. A notable example of the use of this technique is the Google Arts and Culture website. launched in 2011, which provides materials and online tours of spaces of renowned art institutions with an interface similar to Google Street View. Here we have the example of the Metropolitan Museum, where there is an interface with interaction icons and the navigation through the space occurs from points. Each point is a link to access a 360 photography determined by a point of view, which simulates an observer because the height of the camera that takes the picture usually corresponds to the height of the human eye, and that results in a discontinuous displacement. These tours end up emphasizing spatiality, which together with determined points of view and the image definition may result in an unfavorable visualization of certain artworks on display. Thus, it becomes necessary to use complementary media to visualize the artwork, such as high-definition images, videos, and informative texts. Many exhibitions on display during the pandemic period of COVID-19 made available their digital versions. To put as an example, the tour of the exhibition Os Secrets, which was on display at Pinacoteca de São Paulo between 2020 and 2021, and which presents a dynamic use of informative links and videos that present the three-dimensional artworks of the exhibition, a material specifically designed for the online exhibition. In this case of temporary exhibitions, there is also the issue of multiplication of visual spaces, since several exhibitions mounted in the same space may be available online at the same time.
In the cases of exhibitions constructed by 3D graphics techniques, it's not uncommon to find born digital spaces. Due to its construction mode, that is, by graphical computation that does not bound the constructed spaces to physical laws such as gravity, these exhibitions have the potential to extrapolate consolidated notions of curatorship or of expography. In the Binary Matter exhibition, for example, hosted by the Chatão Gallery, we can observe sculptures that fly, or even cross solid walls. Another interesting point to make is that, opposed to 360 photography constructed spaces, 3D graphics supports continuous movement through its space, and therefore allows for multiple POVs of the artworks. All this possibility, however, seems to be held back by the persistence of some traditional expographic elements, like the perpendicular positioning of the artworks, the clean white walls, and of course the simulation of a POV relatively close to the average eye height. And this is a point which leads us to the conclusion of the presentation.
Thus, we conclude that each media has distinctive and specific characteristics that do not replace each other. There are aspects of the tangible space that cannot be transposed to the digital, just as there are properties that are specific to the digital medium. These virtual exhibitions tend to simulate the concrete space and the observer, but their presentation in the digital medium has the potential to extrapolate these references, to expand and create new spaces. Thus, important spaces for thinking about ways to exposing art, starting from digital.